Hey Phoenixes, and welcome back to another art demo with Mr. Bailey. Today we're going to be talking about the proportions of the face. So as we go into our project next week and we're really wrapping up the portrait project, we're going to take the opportunity to really just go over the basics. So on Schoology, you're going to find this worksheet under the portrait drawing page. So when you go there, this is a good reference point. For the most part, I'm going to be showing you most of this, but a couple of extra variations just to be able to point out some pieces. So let's go ahead and go on. So as you work in, there's the first thing that we need to do is to understand your pencil placement and how you hold it. So most of us are used to writing, right, like this. And this is how we hold our pencil when we think, really choked up, really close to the lead. And I just want you to go down to your paper. Don't actually touch it, but how big of a circle can you actually do when you go like this, right? Not very big because you're pretty constricted. Constricted meaning the fact that you can't actually have a lot of movement. It's really the thumb and the hand that's doing all of it. Now take that pencil and just pull it out of your hand. And now look at how much more room and ability you have to draw. Whenever we are basing out our proportions, our figures, whenever you really start drawing, you sketch out that initial, and it doesn't matter if you're doing landscapes, people, still lifes, all of it, you should always draw lightly. And then you're going to go in and really start adding layers to add your value, all of that comes into play. And then the very last piece is usually that fine detail. Maybe we'll get that nice sharp point, we'll go in there and we'll get those fine little places. But let's go ahead and just get into it. So the first piece you need to consider is, what is the basic shape of a head? And the basic shape of a head is usually an oval. We don't want it to be too skinny, right? You don't want something like this, a little egg head. And you don't want it to be this like sideways egg head, like old cartoons, right? So let's just go ahead. Remember, back, and let's just go ahead and work it in. So you may have to go around a couple of times till you get that oval that you're looking for. There we go. And then I can darken it up just slightly. Okay, so I've got my basic shape. From here, now what you want to do is you want to draw and divide that line. So we're just going to draw that light line down the center. Now in this case, we're going to subdivide one more time. We're going to go in the middle. Now take a moment, observe. What do you think goes on this line? If you said the eyes, you're definitely correct. Now I think it's weird. You really think, oh, well, here's the head. That's where the eyes should go, right? No, technically this is where the eyes go, because if you were to take your fingers and you put it at the bridge of your nose on your own face and then at the top of your head, you move that same piece and you go down, you have about an equal distance. So again, this is just a generalization. All of this is a generalization, right? Depending on your race, your sex, or your gender, that's really going to change certain things. There's certain features, male, females, African Americans, Hispanics, white folk. So we have all these different characteristics that come from years, of cultural and DNA, and there's little pieces that go into that. So that's what really comes in later into it. We can make those little changes, those subtle changes. And some of your facial features might be a little bit different, right? I have an ear that's a little bit higher than the other, so we'll figure that out. So in order to get this piece, now we're going to subdivide this part, and we're going to do it one more time. So this is where our eyes are going to go, this is where our nose is going to go, and this is where our mouth is going to go. And then we've got that chin that's down here. And we'll talk about the ears and the neck in a little bit. So general rule of thumb is, when you go here, now we're going to subdivide that in half. When you talk about the eyes, we talk about that inner black circle. That inner black circle is called the pupil. And then around that, the color is your iris. And so we start with the eyelid, and right about in the middle. So I'm going to put 2 hash marks, not too far apart. And I'm going to connect that eye here. And so we have hard lines and soft lines. And typically the eye, the top eyelid, is always a hard line. It's something that you will actually draw. Sometimes your lower lids are a little bit softer depending on if you have dark or light hair. Now we start there. Now a rule of thumb, and I can already tell that my eyes are a little bit too far apart. But typically, if I take my pencil and I use this as a basic measurement, So I go from one end to the other. The distance between, or the distance of one eyeball, is that distance from here to here in between your eyeballs. So you typically have 5, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 lengths, or 5 eyeball lengths, right? And so in this case, I've got it a little too far to the left, a little bit too far to the right. So I'm going to bring this in just a little bit, and that's okay. I'm not even going to erase. Bring it in here. And I'm going to reset my pupil. So now let's see. All right, I'm going to test it out. I'm going to go here. Okay, let's see. All right, look at that. Looks great. Okay, so adjustments, right, people? And that's okay. All right, so now what we need to do is we actually need to look at our eyes. So you need to have a mirror. Obviously, your paper, you've got your pencil. A mirror is going to be good to look at, or if you have a reference photo, take it on your phone and have it in front of you. And that's basically what you're going to use for the basis. Now, look at under your eye. Depending on if you have squintier eyes, right, so they're closer together or they're farther apart, you might have more negative space underneath of that eye. And so in this case, I know that I've got a little bit. So I'm going to draw a little bit more than that half circle. And remember, you want that pupil to be in the middle. And look at where does it go. And since I've got that little bit of white space, I'm going to bring my eyelid down a little bit further. And now I am a little bit more of a football shaped. Try to make it a little bit even, both sides. Now here's the unique part about eyes, and this next week we're going to focus a little bit more on actually drawing eyes. But in this case, it's not just connect here, connect here. The eye goes a little bit further. And so when you draw an eye, typically you're going to see that that eye goes a little bit further and the piece comes in here. And so it goes in and then comes up. And when it reaches the inside corner, there's actually a little bit of a swoop and a curl around, because that is the tear duct. And so we extend that eyeball and you actually see a little bit of the skin here and a little bit of that tear duct that's here. And so in reality, it's really that, right? It is that orb that's sitting in the socket. And so we just take that little bit of an indentation, that little bit of an indentation here, and we're going to account for the tear duct and the fact that this side goes a little bit further. And that circle goes up, and that circle goes up. So a little bit of a trick with the eye. Now we're going to move on to that nose. Now in general, the nose typically starts with a shape that is 3 circles, right? And in those 3 circles, now depending on how bulbous or circular that nose is, you may see a little bit of a soft line here, but for the most part, we're really going to focus on just the nostrils, the bottom edge of that nose here. And that really looks like a frown, and it's not a really big one, kind of a smiley face that's here, and then a frown. Now, if you notice with my nose, with my nose, this is a soft line, and these are harder lines. And then from here, I put the outer edge of that, my nostrils. And depending on the lighting, however that is, but for the most part, these are all soft. It's not this, right? You don't see, right? That's a cartoon. This is a cartoon nose. We don't see hard lines like that. And so in reality, it is nostril, nostril, the outer edge. Here's the underneath, and a little bit of a soft indentation there. And typically we see our lip that comes down here. And all the rest of it is really going to be shading. So you're going to shade the darker side of your nose, and typically this is a highlighted area, so we don't have a whole lot of shading that's there. But we can hard line, hard line. So let's go ahead and do that now. We're going to take a look at, and now, general proportionality of the face. We've already split here, here, and here. Now we start looking at some of those verticals. And so the nose, the edge of the nostrils typically starts at the inside of that eye. So I'm going to bring that line down here, bring that line down here, and I'm going to put my nostrils right there. Okay. And then on that line, I'm going to go ahead and add the bottom point of my nostril, do my little smiley face, frown, frown. Okay, there, we got the nostrils. Now we come down here and we've got the mouth. So the mouth is very similar to this. We start with the little kind of lip in the middle. It's sometimes people have a stronger lip piece right there. It's kind of like a V, but I round it off just a little bit. Now, same as we did the inside of the eye to get the sides of our nose, we're going to go from the pupil, come on down, Mr. Pupil. You're on The Price is Right, right? So we start here, we're going to add the edge of that mouth here, the edge of that mouth. Now I'm going to connect this line to my mouth. Now some of us may have fuller lips, some of us might have, but for the most part, this is going to be that harder line that's right here. And I'm going to come just a quarter of the way up, not quite half, not 3/4, but just about a quarter. And I'm going to do that same thing again. It's like, now it's like a little Batman symbol. And this is the top lip. Now you need to take a look at your top lip and see, is it, or the person that you're going to be drawing, is it thin? Are they thicker? Are they fuller? What happens here in the edge? Does it curl around a little bit? Right? Some of us may have a pretty full lower lip, and this is that next piece. So I'm going to come about halfway, really, where that chin is. I'm going to see, do I have a pretty large full lip? Do I have thin lips, right? Do I need to come up? But what is that distance? Maybe I even take myself and I kind of figure out, okay, I'm going to look in that mirror. I'm going to hold my arm out all the way. I'm going to kind of do that same thing. What's the size of my lip? Okay, I come down. Nope. It's about that. Okay. So I'm going to come around here and I'm going to curl back up to this. Now, for the most part, when we see this, especially on males, you don't necessarily see this unless you have darker lips. So we are just probably going to shade just that little bit because you're going to see it's where that lip curls out. It's implied more so than anything. Now, one of the things you need to consider is that the top lip is usually darker, so when we're shading it in, than our bottom lip because light hits the bottom lip before it hits the top. And so this, from a value perspective, is going to be lighter than that. All right, so there we go. We've got our eyes, we've got our nose, we've got our lips. Now we need to look at our ears. And so typically the ears are right about the top, comes just above that center line, and depending on if your lobe is connected or if it is separate, right, you need to kind of consider what is right here. I'm going to go ahead and connect mine. And usually it's thinner at the bottom. It kind of comes out and snakes back around, kind of like a candy cane. Same over here. Ears, for the most part, are symmetrical. So what you do to one side, you got to do to the other. There's that basis. Now for the neck, so we've got this for our nose, we've got this for our edge of our mouth. For our neck, we go here to here. Bring that line down. Sorry. We bring that line down from here and we bring it out. Come down from here and we bring it out. Now, what you want to do when you're drawing your neck or the subject's neck, you want to consider, okay, when I bring it down, you want to look at where does the neck attach to the jaw. If I've got a wider neck, it might be more up here. Make that same spatial relationship across. So is it above or below my lip line? Is it in line with my eyes or maybe somewhere else, right? Maybe it's about halfway in between the edge of my eye and my ear. All that drawing the face really is about spatial relationships. And so making sure that you understand you're looking both vertically and horizontally, and you're starting to judge. When I've got this to here, right? This is typically a third, right? And then we bring here, this is about half. This becomes, right, quarter. All right. So next piece, we're going to add in our eyebrows. So take a look at, where does the beginning of your eyebrow start? Is it slanted? Right? Does it curve up and then come down? Maybe I'm going to make this person a little angry today. Right? Is it in line right here with the tear duct? Or does it start a little bit over or a little bit past, right? And the one thing that's important, you start with just doing a very light basing of the eyebrow. And for the most part, our eyebrows are probably the same, unless you have, some people have those little like cuts in it or something. And once you go from there, when you lay down your hair, it's mark making, all right? So we know that there's hatching and cross hatching. With eyebrows, though, you typically start with vertical hairs, and then as it goes out, you are actually, so I'll do this bigger, with eyebrows, as you go out towards the edge, the hair starts shifting. So you need to look at what is the angle of that hair. You might only have a couple that are vertical before it starts. And again, it's about layering. Sometimes your portraits can be made or broken with your hair treatment. It isn't just darkening it to the point. If you want it to look more realistic, you actually look at that. So I'm going to actually do that little cut there. It's all the fashion ridge, right? Maybe it's bushier, maybe it's not, right? You might have a couple flyaways. That's fine. All right, so we got that in there. Now we need to figure out our hair. So this is that point again to where you're going to take, what is about that distance? Is it about halfway between my eyebrows and what would be the top of my head? Now you also need to consider, unless you are bald or you have a very, very short fade, right? Then you're not going to see the tops of that head. Hair lays on top of the skull. And so for some of us, we need to consider and start with, okay, do you have a part? Is it in the middle? Is it on the side? So I'm going to go ahead and put his part. It's going to go right above about the eyeball here. And I know it comes to about halfway. And this is about in line with it. And I'm going to just lightly base out the hair. Now there's a little bit of a messiness to it. It's kind of shaggy. Kind of comes down here, curls out a little bit. And it goes, and I look at my ear, it's about halfway. And above that head, it kind of comes down where that part is. And then it swoops across. Maybe I've got a little bit. Now I don't want that chicken scratch line. That's not what we want. You can put at least a little bit where there's some flyaways or some separation with the hair. So it actually comes in and curls back out. And this is the top part. Okay. And then there's some hair because this is overlap, and so there's something that's behind it. Kind of that same deal. Okay. All right. It comes down a little bit. No sideburns or anything. All right. Now the important thing with the hair is, same with your eyebrows, you need to consider that hair is a bunch of single brush strokes, or pencil strokes. And so as you start building it out, it's also about value. And so you're going to base it out in lighter strokes. You're going to vary it a little bit and understand the direction. So in this case, hair typically starts from the crest of a part and folds over. Look at the direction of the hair. As you're moving it further away from center, you're going to see that the contour bend a little bit and then come down. As you come towards that center, it starts flattening out and falls a little bit more. And don't be afraid to figure out. Now, once you start looking at, okay, what's my hair pattern, and where do I start seeing the highlights and the shadows? Don't start all the way from the top. Come back in here and know, okay, here's where that hair kind of comes in, and I start seeing dark. So I'm going to, here's one of those shadow pieces. Okay. I'm going to continue to layer, and I'm going to really look. My highlights, I'm not going to put as much pencil marks in. My lowlights are my shadows. That's where I will add more. Maybe you have a larger swath of hair. So we start coming in and we start figuring out. This takes the longest, y'all. But remember, good hair, great pieces. Okay, have that patience. The rest of it is really about understanding, okay, here's where our value is. For our portrait, we need to understand that there's highlights. What are the colors? Maybe it is white, so the color of the paper, or yellow, right? A lighter color. And then we have midtones. And midtones really are those colors that are like your basic skin, right? So that could be green or even orange. And then you have shadows. And those are our purples, our reds, even a little bit of our blacks if we mix it in. Because this is going to be an abnormal color palette. So you come in here and we're going to add that pupil in there. You've got that iris as well. Typically you see some highlights. So next week we're going to practice on this. Nose, mouth, eyes, so that way you guys get in. We're going to continue to build out our use of value and feel good about the work that we accomplish. Okay, y'all? So there you go, basic proportions of the face. Remember, you've got two eyes. It's about an eye length apart. Remember, you have to use your vertical and your horizontal axes to figure out those spatial relationships. What's that space from here to here, here to here, and so on and so forth. And then once we start going in, we'll learn about some of the rest of it. But good job, everybody. I think you had a great day. Awesome.